Hello, my friends. Welcome back to episode 5 of Catalyze Your Soul's Deepest Embodiment in the context of relationships. If you didn't catch our last episode, please do that. Attachment, relevant or irrelevant. We're getting some really fabulous guidance or feedback on this stuff. And this series has really been breaking people open. So I really encourage you to go back and just sink in, be with it. Like any parts that activate you in a good way or a bad way or a neutral way, just sit with it. Today, we're going to be talking about self-intimacy and kind of shedding old versions of you and welcoming in new versions of you and what that looks like and how that feels and all the stuff. Katie and I have been doing this for, a very long time, and we'll probably be doing it for a longer time. But when it comes to self-intimacy, the way that I define this is really welcoming all of yourself forward. Right. And when you welcome all parts of yourself forward, those parts that you have shame about, those parts that haven't been seen for a while, those parts that feel, any part of you, even the super exciting parts and the super desiring parts that might feel like a little uncomfortable or outside of your comfort zone. It's like allowing all of them to come forward and then letting them integrate into who you are now, like bringing that energy current to who you are now. Because a lot of these parts of ourselves hold codes and memories and stories and narratives from previous versions of us. Right. So can you talk a little bit about like the shedding process that happens with that, Katie?
Yeah, so I think a lot of these parts of us, right, just want to they come up to be seen. And so to your point of really taking them in and giving them the space just to be seen, it's actually how we can reframe them. So it's not necessarily about truly like letting them go and making them never a part of us and just ripping them out of our body. It's about that shedding is shedding the stories that we hold behind them, the memories, the perspectives, and being able, and again, whether they're from this lifetime, a past one, ancestral, like wherever they come from, we get to shed them by shifting our perspective on them. And that's how we end up integrating into ourselves. And oftentimes we find that they're just pieces of our ego, pieces of our human. And we just they've created the life that we have, right? I don't want to say they defined us, right? But they've got us to the point where we are in life. And so if we can start to reflect back on those and give them the space to be seen, we can have this deeper love and appreciation in ourselves. And I think that's where this last piece of creating this self-intimacy and these new identities is where we're able to take that and anchor it within ourselves, because it's not about completely getting rid of it. It's about letting it kind of be like absorbed back into you is how I
Yes,
feel.
100%. I have a digital course called Dissolve on my website that is literally for this because it was making me crazy. There's so many people out there talking about like, let's get rid of the ego. Let's remove the ego. Let's even the word shed can be like,
Right.
but it's really, let's not, again, I've said this so many times in this series, let's not reject any part of ourselves. Like you said, it's gotten us to where we are today and there's a deep purpose in it. And so it's just kind of shedding the stories attached, which I love that you made that delineation because it's so important. And then taking that energy and allowing it to like form or dissolve into whatever parts really are meant to arrange into new form with this new energy that's coming in and that's present within us now, and allowing it to just integrate back in a different formation.
Yeah, and I love that imagery of like the particles coming back in, right?
Mhm.
Like we so often want to push it. Like for so many, right? For most of us, right? We've always suppressed the feelings and we've pushed
Yep.
them down. Like, I'm not going to feel this. This is not the right time, or I'm not allowed to feel it, or whatever, right? But now as we start this awakening journey, we bring them up and we're like, oh, I have to release that. I have to let that go. And we want to like throw it out of us. But
Mhm.
it's like I am finding so much in my work for myself and with clients, it's like, no, no, no. Like, let me take it up. Like, I feel like most of the time it like magnets to me and it's just, it like zooms almost like a vacuum. But then it's like, it's electrically charged. We take it, we change the stories, we see a different perspective, we see it from the lens of our soul versus our ego.
Yeah.
We hold that space for it, and then it pours back in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not taking it and then going and emptying it or releasing it, right? I'm taking it back in, and that's the alchemy. That's the medicine, right?
It
Like,
is. And what I like to visualize with that, I love how we're just like playing off each other here, because like what I like to visualize with what you just described is like out as that's happening and like getting reintegrated and reorganizing, I picture like source like pouring this pitcher of energy like in the top of my head and like filling me up like a pitcher. And so that is like mixing with these energetic particles, right? And it's like swirling around, and that's the co-creation process, is allowing it to settle where it's meant to settle now. And I think that when we do that and we call all energy that has been scattered or sent outside of us back to our center, then we're working with the purity of our wholeness, right? All of who we are. And it's from there that we'll have greater discernment and opportunity to, I want to say, release slash transmute any kind of past life or ancestral energy that can come, that's present, right? That needs to come current or needs to move on because its contract with us is complete.
yes, I feel like that's one piece of it. And as you're talking, the other piece that's coming forward is creating this new identity, right? Like, if we can take that medicine back in and, yes, use the piece that you were talking about with past lives ancestral, right? But as you take it back in, now that is the new identity,
Right.
right? Because, and now you can take that forward, and the ripple effect that that has is so impactful. Like,
Mm.
there's so much goodness in feeling whole. I think sometimes when we remove things, it leaves us feeling
Mm.
empty or alone or rejected, right?
Mm.
But when we can pour it back into ourselves, we end up feeling this wholeness,
Yeah.
this co-creation, as you like. Yes, that's exactly how I see it too. Like, co-creating with source and having all of that energy flow into each individual like cell and organ and be just like illuminated,
Mm.
right? And then we can take that in the relationship with ourselves deepens, right? With that level of intimacy. But then even with our kids or the people we live with or friends or relationships or clients, like, it doesn't matter. Like, that begins to ripple out because you feel the closeness and the fullness, the
Mm.
completeness to you, remembering that you are one and whole just the way you are,
And that's
not
the
the person who made you up.
sensation. And that's what I like. I encourage people to listen to like what you're saying from a place of sensation, like feel what Katie's saying, because it's like when you rewind and listen back to what she just said and just close your eyes and like receive the sensation of it, like that's the feeling that we are inviting you into today, is this wholeness and completeness, which feels like a deep intimacy, a boldness and a safety all at the same time. So it's like this softened intimacy with yourself and the divine and people around you, in addition to like, I'm so safely anchored and unshakable, and I have momentum. Like, I'm moving forward knowing exactly where I'm going without consciously knowing where I'm going.
Totally.
And that's the energy we're going to bring forward with this practice today. We're going to do a little bit of a practice with you. This episode plus the next few are going to have healing practices with them, which we're really excited about, just honestly being in this energy with you together around. I don't even know how I phrase that sentence, but you know what I'm trying to say. And so just so happy to share this with you. Let's leave it at that. So anyway, this is also brave, this process, because this is what really anchors in that sovereignty and draws a boundary around it in a way that's fluid, right? It's not rigid, it's a fluid boundary, but this allows you to have this knowing of your completeness that clarifies and gives you a gauge for the boundaries that will present when you're in exchange with other people, whether it's a partner, whether it's other relationships. And so it deeply serves the sovereignty in all of your connections, including the one with yourself and the divine, when you're able to really anchor this sensation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So
because I feel like that's a big piece of it that we miss, right? We want, I think a lot of people, and myself included in the beginning, it was all ego based. Like my identity was all ego based. Like, oh, I want to show up in this way. Well, I wasn't feeling it, right? And if we can't feel the sensation within our body, we can't become it, right? Because it's still outside of us. And so if we can take that in and feel it and feel those sensations, that is truly how we create that new pathway, right? That we create that new identity going forward.
and we create it easier because the
Yeah.
mind ends up being in a struggle with the body. And it's like, that doesn't mean you don't decide things, right? Like we can make decisions. That's where the mind is helpful, but then you take your hands off the wheel. And we talked about that active versus passive surrender in a previous episode as well. So tune into those. But today we're going to be doing a little bit of an exercise with you where this is what we were talking about before we came on here. And those of you who are not watching this on YouTube, I'm holding my hand out, like my palm out flat, and I'm kind of running my finger from the other hand, my pointer finger, on to this palm. So it's almost like my palm, my open palm, is a piece of clay. And my finger is like moving through this piece of clay. And you know how when you do that, when you're like pushing your finger through a piece of clay, there's going to be like, what are the words? Like little remnants or fragments that kind of push up on the sides. Is it the
Yeah,
best way
it's
to
like the
say it?
excess.
The excess. Thank you. So it's like, yeah, you're pushing your finger through and that excess kind of comes up on the side, right? Like that, this is us carving a new pathway. And that's what we're doing today. We're carving a new pathway for the new identity that you may not even realize you're being invited to step into. And so as that excess kind of comes up around the side of the path, that's the ancestral energy. That's the past life energy. Those are the stories that are shedding. Those are the parts of you that are like, okay, I'm coming up to be seen. I'm being kind of pushed up to the side a little bit. But then once it comes up, it's like, it feels looser. It feels more malleable. It feels freer. Like you could just wipe it away if you want to, or you can push it back into the clay and mold it differently. You can push it into the pathway you're carving and make it part of it. Like there's all different things you can do with it. And then as Katie was saying, as we were talking about this, like your finger can go, like you can go deeper and deeper into the clay. You can change direction. You can put it all back into a ball and start over, right? Like there's so many different ways to go, but we want to guide you through this today because we want you to feel it. We want you to really feel this in your being. So let's start this process by just closing our eyes and taking a nice deep breath in. And if you're driving, you can come back to this later or just receive what you can and then open up some space to really sit into more of an immersion later on. Allow your shoulders to fall back and down, your jaw to loosen, your face to soften. Let the eyes be gently closed. Take another deep breath in to the top of the head and release slowly. And I want you to picture your spine as the breath is moving in and out of the spine, upward, downward, through the crown, down through the root space, right at the base of your spine. Just let your breath move in and out of this tube of light. Deep breaths to expanding your ribs outward. And now I want you to imagine that your spine has become a very, very strong magnet. And as you breathe in, you call in all of the energy that has been scattered around you, any debris, any energy that's been given away. Allow yourself to just call that towards you with every inhale. And then with every exhale, you allow it to just integrate and settle in and smooth in that spinal column. Taking a couple more breaths here. Inviting in all of that scattered energy. Continuing to breathe slowly and deeply, just being with all of this energy for a moment. And then we're going to call in this thin illuminated thread of light down through the crown. And it's going to push through the crown as if we are pushing our finger in that clay. We're going to allow this thread to come in through the crown, noticing any excess that develops as you carve a new pathway through the crown. Not your typical entry point. Go in a different direction. Go to the left is what I'm feeling. Allow this thread to go in through the left, which is the old paradigm, the old identity, the old way of being. Allow it to push down through the third eye. Even maybe making a spiral at the third eye with this pathway, whatever you want to do with it. You can circle the third eye. You can create a triangle around it. Noticing these energy centers illuminating and deepening as you go. Allow this thread to pass through the throat. Breathe into this now, allowing this energy to really expand the throat space. This is our space of expression, of really vocalizing who we are, what we stand for, what we stand on, what we stand in. Taking another deep breath, swallowing here. Witnessing this excess energy and deciding now, not with your mind, but with your heart, with your sensation, with your body, whether this excess is something that needs to be kind of scattered away or reintegrated into your pathway so that you're moving deeper with this thread, allowing this illuminated thread to move even deeper down into the heart space. Allow this thread to write one single word into your heart space, to ingrain it into your heart space so that it becomes a part of you. This word could be love. This word could be adoration. This word could be wonder. It could be curiosity, expansion. The sky is limitless. Whatever comes forward, don't think about it too much. Just let it arrive. Allowing any excess energy that gets developed with writing this word to be pulled into the shoulders and down the arms, out through the fingertips. You can flick your fingertips to release any energy that needs to be released. Placing your hand on your heart space to really stamp this new reality and this new vibration in, taking a deep breath into the hand. And on your exhale, allowing this illuminated thread to move down to the solar plexus, where this thread expands into like a wide, thin ribbon, getting even brighter, amplified, picking up the pace from your solar plexus and carrying this down into your sacral. Imagine this ribbon, this thread of ribbon that is weaving through your entire digestive system, through the small intestine, the large intestine, through all of it. Let it get into every single crevice. Allow it to redirect some of the pathways in your digestive system that have felt dark, that have felt stagnant, that have felt heavy. This is where I'm feeling a lot of past life energy coming forward. Nice deep breath in here. And on your exhale, push any of that past life energy out through the root. And as you push it out through the root, it can get integrated into the legs and the feet, or it can be released into Mother Earth, whatever feels aligned for you. Allow any excess that's getting picked up from this new pathway being carved in your digestive space to be formed into a ball, so that as this thread moves down into the root space right at the base of your spine, you can place this ball of excess energy right there in the center of your root space, which is a red circle. It's like a disc. And as you breathe, this disc starts to spin like a pottery wheel. And this excess ball of energy starts to thin and expand into a perfect circle. And it's here that the density of this energy starts to drip through the base of your root chakra, releasing and integrating any ancestral energy whose contract is complete with having to hold you safely or having to require your reliance on anyone or anything. This is about claiming the legs that you stand on, the legacy that you desire to leave. That is a full integration of all of these energies. Knowing that as you do this and you anchor in this sovereignty, you're connected to all of it, but you're not lost in it. You're not confused. You have clarity. Allow this anchored energy to stop spinning at your root space, sending a very bold, solid tube of light up your spine, all the way through your crown. Taking a nice deep breath here. Shaking out the body for any loose energy that desires to just kind of reintegrate and reform. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you for sending Reiki, Katie. For those of you who are not on video, Katie was sending Reiki the entire time because she's a boss. Did anything come forward for you? Any knowing?
I just found it fascinating that you and I did not have that scripted. I mean, we don't have any of this scripted, really. We have very brief bullet point notes, right? So that we stay on track here. But I just found it fascinating that exactly as you're channeling, just that's what I was feeling too. Like literally, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, yep. Like, so I just think there's some synchronicity in that. And also it reminds me very much of the collective energy, right? And just this it's like when you were carving that new path, we so often feel like we have to walk a path, like we have to. We have to walk the path that was placed on us, whether that was by, somebody in this lifetime or that told us we had to do these things, or we believe that, we have a destiny and we have to walk that path. We have to go through those things. And it's like, no, you have the ability to carve your new path. You get to decide, you get to lead yourself through this. And that was the biggest thing that started to come through is like that co-creation that you mentioned before. It's like, no, you get to co-create. You're not being told what to do. You get to weave it. You get to carve it and allow yourself to really have fun with it and play with it and
receive
feel.
it. Yes, feel it and receive it, because that's like the thing. It's like even saying that, like you get to create it, I think is so daunting for so many people.
Yeah.
It's like, but what do I create? And that's why it's so important for us to like guide you through practices like this, because regardless of how much of you came online with this practice, know that you've received the energy and the seed is planted, and that the whole point here is to recognize that it doesn't have to be hard. Like it doesn't have to be hard for you to like have to think about this or take on extra responsibility to hold your own sovereignty and to find this safety. Like let yourself receive the pathways that are naturally being carved for you right now. And then there's going to be a little bit of ego confusion. There's going to be, and Katie and I were literally talking about this before we started recording this episode, a couple areas in our life that I'm just like, what is this in human form? Like, I understand it energetically, like I can feel it palpably. I understand it spiritually. I can feel it and it's a no-brainer. But in the human, I'm like, this is weird. Like, this is weird. Like, I don't really know where this is going to go in the human, but it doesn't matter, because when you follow the energy, you always get what is most deeply nourishing. And that's the beauty of detaching from the outcome. Because it's like, I don't care where any of these experiences in my life are going. Like, it's being in the present and allowing yourself to just like receive and be with the energy and let it move you and let it carve new versions of you, and just get excited and eager and in wonderment about what new layers of you come online, that you can be like, oh, hello, I didn't know you were a part of me.
Yes, like yes. And then I'm also feeling letting that old identity go is a grieving process. So if you start to feel some heaviness of like, I don't know who I am without this, or right, like let yourself feel that space too. And to your point of the seed has been planted. So sometimes the seed just needs to be planted. We allow that space for the grieving to come up, and then we can feel a little bit more because that seed is there to erupt up, not erupt, that sounds abrupt, but like to rise up. But sometimes it's still, I don't know, I feel like the grieving process is an important note that as you shed these old things, it might not feel as warm and fuzzy, right? And it's
Correct.
okay. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for saying that, because it was literally what was coming online for me too, is like you end up with this space of like, who am I? Like literally looking at yourself in the mirror and be like, who the hell are you? Right. And so it's realizing that you can know that at a very deep level and not on a conscious level. And so, yes, there can be a grieving process, but I was literally talking to my client about this the other day. I don't remember what we were talking about, but I said to her, I was like, there's a couple ways you can go with this. You can kind of take this grieving energy and be with it, right? Like be with it, drain what's not yours, alchemize what's there with you, and allow it to come forward. And then there's also going to be times when the grief comes up that you're able to say, I'm not available for that right now. That is no longer how I'm practicing. I see you, I honor you, I appreciate you, but I'm ready. And so that is completely going to be up to your intuition and like the space that you're in, because sometimes it can be as simple as like, nope, not available. Because sometimes grieving energy can mimic like wounded feminine or like victim energy. And so it's like being really discerning about those two and like giving it space, but not sitting in it so much that you don't still claim where you're going and get kind of lost in the sauce of the wallow.
It's the wallow energy. It's exactly what I was just going to say, right? Like allow yourself the space, but remember that emotions are, 60 to 90 seconds, right? And we can allow the space, we can tantrum it out, we can cry it out, we can whatever, but root back into that wholeness, that completeness, and the sensation that you desire to feel. And I feel like that's where you can pivot it, right? Like,
Yes.
how do you want to feel? Okay, you're feeling this right now. Give it the space. It's kind of like I see it in a circle, right? Like you start here. This is where you start. This is where you feel. You let it feel the space, and then you get to a certain point. You're like, okay, how do I want to feel? And then it's this completeness, and it's this cyclical thing. We're human. Like we're gonna keep feeling that, but yeah, don't get stuck in it. Don't wallow.
And you get to choose it.
You
You
get to
get to
choose
choose
it.
it. It's like
Yeah.
that. It's like that Taylor Swift lyric. Because now I have to listen to Taylor Swift because my 8-year-old is obsessed. And unfortunately, I have become a fan. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's judgment. Gonna remove that. Place it on the side. Anyway, it's why are you mad when you could be glad? Right. And I say this to my 8-year-old all the time. Why are you mad when you could be glad? And I'm just like, some people are like, it's not that easy. And sometimes it isn't that easy. And if it's not, that's your indicator that you just need to be with it for a little bit. Like give it its space, let it have its way for a short period of time, then be like, okay, thank you. I'm so glad that we had this space together. Let's go get ice cream or whatever it is the fuck you want to do. Right. But you get to choose it. Getting all fired up, Katie. Okay, guys, this is perfect so that we can tell you about our topic for our next episode, which is sexuality. And get ready because we are going to have like we said, healing and practices that go along with these. So get ready to get activated next week. I'm so excited. And we'll see you very soon. Anything else, Katie?
No, I'm super jazzed about
I
it.
know. Thank you guys for being here with us so that we can pump up our energy and just feel this alchemy right along with you. And we love you. We so appreciate you. And we want to hug you. So check out the link in the show notes for our retreat, which is September 13th to the 17th in the Berkshires, Massachusetts. And I'm just like resting and settling into these vibes already. Like every time I think about it, somebody messaged me the other day and they were like, it feels like a warm hug. Like reading about your retreat feels like I'm just getting embraced in a warm hug. And I'm like, that's exactly the
Yeah.
vibe. It's
We
exactly.
just want to hold you and see you and let those parts of you be seen so that you can anchor into yourself. You can anchor into that self intimacy, that sovereignty that exists within you. Like that's all we want.
The self yumminess.
The self yumminess. Oh, look
Self
at that.
yumminess. Okay, we're closing on self yumminess. Love you guys. Mwah. See you next week. Bye.